Welcome to SSI's Security Speaking podcast, brought to you by Security Sales and Integration. Each episode features thought leaders from throughout the professional security channel discussing technology, winning business practices, hot industry trends, and emerging opportunities. We appreciate your interest and encourage you to subscribe to Security Sales and Integration and its newsletters. Regularly visit securitysales.com for the latest news and follow SSI on social media. Thank you.
As you go to market now, is your play more focused on, operational improvements or on the security part of it? And how do you balance that when you present it to the end users?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and I kind of keep the business simple. I've got people that everybody on this call knows more than me about this industry, right? You guys have all done this for a while, but I keep it pretty simple. When I talk to a lot of end users and other integrators, I found that, and I'll give you an example that hopefully will make sense. But and I've done this a bunch. We live in Charlotte, and there's a popular Southeast restaurant chain now that's nationwide. You know the one I'm speaking of?
I'm not sure.
Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And why Chick-fil-A is so Chick-fil-A is twice as profitable as the next fast food chain in size. Twice as profitable. And why they are is because they have a consistent process, time in, time out, right? You go into their facilities and the employees are amazing. They have a great customer experience. They have consistency with their product. The locations look the same. So it's creating that repeatable process. And I jokingly, but this is true, a survey came out and ranked Chick-fil-A as the healthiest fast food option. And Chick-fil-A sells fried chicken and French fries. But because they have such a consistent experience, right? And because they have such a great customer experience, that one, they're more profitable, and two, they have loyal customers beyond loyal. So this industry, I think creating a repeatable process that won't embarrass the end user is kind of the table stakes. That's kind of what you can do. That you've already vaulted yourself ahead of a lot of the competitors. The competitors again have taken their eye off the ball and haven't focused on process. Right? They focused on their size. They focused on acquisitions, but nobody's focused on best of breed and repeatable processes. So as simple as that sounds, and by the way, it's difficult to do. That's what we focused on, is creating that consistent process that people can go to bed kind of feeling good about.
Maybe to add a little color to that, Scott, if it's okay. One of the things Eric's empowered us to do here is we've put a lot of detail and structure and training around people, process, and partners. So we measure utilization rates of everybody in the field. We measure their efficiency on every job and every service call. We track return trips to service calls. We set KPIs around them. We're looking for our team to be 95% utilized. We've put together incentive plans for people to hit those utilization efficiencies and margin goals and customer satisfaction goals, purchasing goals. This morning we had a meeting with our purchasing team setting KPIs out for 2021, knowing that we'll purchase north of $30 million worth of equipment in this time frame. So, purchasing is a key area for the company, and just purchasing 1 or 2% better can drop $500,000 to the bottom line. So we put a lot of tools in place, training in place. We've had all our project managers, security project management certified. So they run the job the same way. They use the tools we put in place with Smartsheets and Sedona. They run the project with the end in mind. So what's the end date? And they build their plan backwards. So Eric's empowered us to put a lot of those tools in play.
Well, having an embedded model in particular, I would think is got its own unique challenges in terms of, if the end users are closing their facilities and that kind of thing. So was that an issue to navigate?
Some, it depends on the customer. I'll give you, one example. Obviously, we focus on the corporate campus side. We don't do the big box locations. And yeah, they went from 10,000 people in Atlanta in an office to they're currently at 2,000. So they're 10 buildings to one, right? So yeah, there was definitely a shrink in that footprint, whether it's temporary or not. I think we all are wondering. I think there'll be some coming back of some sort, but we'll plan accordingly. But it caused us, when you have embedded employees and you have a good reputation, but so it caused us to shift our people to focus on other areas. So they have distribution centers. They've made a few acquisitions, and so it kind of has you shift, and you try to make do. But for the most part, when you have good partners, it's amazing how all of them were almost in our corner saying, "What can we do to help? Right? How can we help you? Right? How can we help you? We know." We always think we have a thing called tip of the spear. If you look at our logo, it's right behind me. You'll see that spear. And that's, I won't go into detail because I'll be long-winded, but that tip of the spear is really the genesis of the organization. The employees are the tip of the spear. And so we got a chance to test it, right? And what was neat is that our partners kind of acted like tip of the spear, and they couldn't wait to say, well, what can we do to help, right? How can we find more work for you guys to do? Because we want to make sure that you guys are keeping busy and your employees are kept on the payroll, so to speak. So it definitely was affected by especially the corporate campus side, but I think we adjusted and our partners kind of helped us adjust.
Did it lead to you adjusting your projection for the year, fiscally, and also your growth plan?
We did. We actually, I have quarterly board meetings and we adjusted our forecast. You set a forecast annually, but we actually ended up adjusting it every quarter. So we would reforecast every quarter based on what information we had from, in front of us. So it caused us, we actually ended up flat. We're actually up a little, technically we're up year over year, but from a forecast perspective, yeah, we were down. We had a pretty aggressive forecast. We were down about 20% from forecast, but year over year up slightly. I think the thing that we doubled down on, our EBITDA was also down a little, but we knew it was going to be because we were spending, to build the infrastructure to create scale. And we knew that spend was going to happen in 2020. So that wasn't a surprise that EBITDA was down, but we also decided that, during the heat of the pandemic, okay, you say tip of the spear, now live it, right? And so we had people that weren't working. We probably had, John, I don't know what percentage of our staff, but a good chunk of our staff for a period of 60, 90 days, weren't as busy as they typically are. But we went ahead and we didn't do any layoffs, any furloughs. In fact, we paid 100% bonus. So we decided to live tip of the spear. So any effects that on the revenue, top or bottom, mostly on the bottom side, were kind of planned in both the platform build out and then making sure that we kept our employee base intact. So when we come into 2021, you've got a super loyal employee and you've got kind of a good platform to grow. So that's a little bit about top line, bottom line, right? Top line, not tons of effect. Top line, bottom line, we did see it, but it was for the right reasons.
And Scott, when you think about anomalies in spend, 2020 had that for us during COVID. When you rewrap, 45 trucks that used to say DTS or ASCO to say Sage, and you reuniform, 58 people with Sage shirts and winter jackets and hats. Okay, yep. So, when we rewrap vans from the two companies we'd acquired, ASCO and DTS, there's an expense. When you reuniform 58 people with shirts, winter coats, hats, business cards, right? There's a 7-figure spend you won't make every year. But it was a one-time event that, as Eric taught, had impact on EBITDA during a crazy time with the pandemic. But we went forward with as Eric said, and acted to the letter of what we built when we rebranded the business as Sage and Tip of the Spear. And we came up with the Tip of the Spear idea during a strategy meeting after we came up with the name Sage, with the idea that, and Eric touched on a little earlier, good companies take care of the customer, great companies take care of the employees, and the employees will do the rest. And that's what we wake up and try to live every day. Some days it's more challenging than others, but most days it's pretty rewarding that you've got everybody that. And we did our sales and operations kickoff meeting about a month ago. And one of our rock star employees, she actually was our Rookie of the Year this year. She got our Rookie of the Year award. And she's doing phenomenally well, Svette McCulley. And during her quarterly review with me, she asked me a question, Scott. She says, "Hey, how do you rebuild trust?" And I said, "Svette, I'm not sure what you're asking me, but you can't talk yourself out of something you acted yourself into." She shook her head. "No, I think there's people here that are very talented, but at one point they did something wrong, and now people won't give them another chance." And to me, it triggered when I got to stand up in front of 58 people during this kickoff meeting to say, we talk about tip of the spear all the time and how the employees are the most sagers, are the most important thing we have, and treat them that way. And I think somehow in messaging, and Eric always is talking to us about we've got to all stay on message by communicating. They got the idea that management, our executive team and the managers are supposed to treat the associates like tip of the spear, but they weren't all on board with that. They had to treat each other that way. And now that messaging that has resonated with them saying, hey, everybody treats each other as tip of the spear. And that's really started to resonate. Now I hear that in conversations every day. So if somebody says, hey, Scott's not doing a very good job. All right, well, how can we help him do better? Don't say that about Scott. Maybe you don't understand what workload he's got. So we're starting to hear people really amplify the messaging that originally was taken as, hey, the executive team's going to treat us like tip of the spear. But now they understand it's how they treat each other as well.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about the culture right there.
Yep.
Yeah. What is the plan in terms of growth? You're so specific in your target, like you said. You don't want to be the biggest. You want to be the best. So what does that look like in terms of acquisitions, organic growth?
Yeah, I'll give you. We have what we build as a path to 100, and the reason I use 100 million, it's a target for us. But once you get to 100, you kind of what you did to get to 100. Let's apply it to get to 200. Apply it to get to 300. Right. So there's a modeling impact. There's a modeling effect of why I say path to 100. But we have a goal to get to 100 million by the end of this year. Roughly, and these numbers can vary, but about 40% to 50% will come from existing customers, just loyal existing customers. Roughly 40% will come from M&A, and the remainder will come from our newly organic sales efforts, of which we've had a ton of success already, which I'm super excited about. So it's kind of that mix. And that's this year. We are not going to be kind of a M&A, shop, right? Is what a lot of people in this industry, kind of how they build organizations. We're very strategic. John and I probably looked at 25 opportunities and not done one. It doesn't either the culture doesn't work or the math doesn't work. It's culture or math, right? To boil it down to simplicity. But our goal is to get to 100 million. That's right now the math is kind of 50, 40, 10, 50 existing, 40 M&A, 10 organic. That's also driven by an acquisition that we're getting closer to as we speak, and so that's helping drive that 40% number. That's kind of loosely put where we kind of see our growth, and it'll as we mature more, the organic side will take over a larger percentage of that. We have to prove we can grow organically. It's super important for us. We just started the efforts March of last year was when we first hired our first salespeople. Imagine the timing there. To be a new salesperson coming into 2020, March of 2020. Good news is that we stuck with it. Like I said before, we tip of the spear, stuck with it, and we're at about 45% of our annual goal through February for organic sales. So we're seeing some real positive momentum there.
What about in terms of geographies? How do you see that footprint rolling out, and where are you mostly focused right now?
Yeah, so I'll tell you where we have a footprint, and I'll give you kind of my poke the bear answer. So we are in Ohio. We're based. Most of our shared services are based in Kent, Ohio, kind of northeastern Ohio. We have offices in Dallas, Atlanta. I'm in Charlotte, and then we're about to open up in Knoxville probably in the next 30 days. That's our current footprint. One of the things that I find interesting is that question gets asked all the time, where are your offices? And I always like to poke the bear, and I always ask, why do people always ask that question? Well, they always ask, how many offices do you have? And it's always interesting to me why that's the first question that everybody asks. Consultants will ask you that, end users will ask you that. I think the industry's been trained. I think the big guys have trained the industry that ask that question because it's our differentiator. We have offices everywhere, and not everybody does. So we immediately have an advantage by just saying we have offices everywhere. I think the question really is why is it so important that I have an office? And what we kind of get down to is it's really about quality control, or the perception of quality control, right? That you'll have a better process you have a better chance of a successful deployment or project if you have an office that's local. Really, that boils down to your process. It really doesn't boil down, just because you have an office somewhere doesn't mean you're going to be good, right? I mean, look at all of us in the last 8 months. Where have you worked? Where have we all worked, right? We've worked remotely, and we've been successful doing it because we create a virtual environment. We create processes that we can measure and track. And so, I don't mean to go off track. You see where our offices are. And right now, if you took a string and go from Ohio to Dallas east, that's where we're focusing on. We haven't started a venture to the west. But I also think that nothing scares us because we have really strong processes. And I think we have a model that can expand quickly. And so I don't mean to poke the bear a little bit, but that answer drives me a little bit crazy because that's what everybody asks for some reason. And I get why they ask it, but that's a little bit about my answer to that question.
So maybe just add a little more color to Eric's answer. When Eric asked me, why do they keep asking this? And what I reckon this back to, Scott, is when the alarm companies were powerful and there weren't digital circuits, they had direct wire and McCullough. So you had to have an office near the area you were servicing because the Bell telephone lines only went so far. So you needed offices. And the more offices you had, the more customers you could service. Where I think it's not as relevant today is we're servicing corporate clients, regulated utilities with thousands of locations in 62 U.S. cities and 9 foreign countries. And we use partnerships to do it. We parachute our own engineers in to make final connections, test, quality control, and train. So we've got good process built around it. We've got good partnerships. But where we add these offices, as Eric's talking about, is when we get these embedded clients that need us there, and we'll expand in that area.
Do you think that as a result of the pandemic that there's going to be an increase in consolidation? Some of the companies that kind of can hack it during this trying time, both from a company perspective and then from a talent acquisition perspective in terms of, maybe there's some people that were freed up by some of those companies that had to let people go and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll answer the macro and you can go to the macro side of it is it was happening before the pandemic, right? Consolidation was happening before the pandemic. And I think, the model that someone gave me the statistic, I don't know if it's right, but there's roughly 20,000 commercial integrators in the United States and fewer than 10% have more than 15 employees, right? That was a magazine I read and it kind of helped me inform the jump into this industry, but it's very fragmented. It's been consolidating. I think the industry is transforming because end users are really pulling integrators in, right, and having them keep up. That was one of the other takeaways we had. So I think you're going to see continued consolidation. Technology is running so fast, and the ability to keep up and keep up with the demands of some of these customers. You got to have a certain amount of scale just to survive. And so I think those 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people, 10-person companies are going to struggle to maintain. How do you keep up with all different lines of business, right, and all the different product solutions, as well as kind of service the ongoing, ever-changing needs of the end user. I think it's tough to do when you're small, and so I think you're going to see. We saw, like I said, it was happening before the pandemic. I think the pandemic sped it up on a macro perspective. John could talk on the more of the micro side, of people side.
Yeah. So it's interesting, Scott. We look at Eric and I got to look into 26 integrators in the past 14 months and see their balance sheets, their P&Ls, their AR, their backlogs. And wow, right? There's one that fits our culture and is financially viable. The other 25 were scary. Their run rates, their cash. So they either have to sell their business for the cheap, or they're going to go out of business. So that's how scary some of these challenges are out there. And then even the bigger companies, we've had employees reaching out for us that work for some of the bigger companies that have done furloughs. They've stopped matching 401ks. They're paying different percentages on benefits. They stopped reimbursing for mobile phone, all kinds of things like that. So those employees that had good benefits and now don't feel like they've been treated so well. So the pool for talent is rich out there right now. So you're able to be very selective and hire the best people and give them a good home and talk to them about tip of the spear and how they'll be treated here and the opportunities for growth. So we've seen the impact on the regional integrator that wasn't maybe paying as close attention over the past years to their financial situation. And now with this slowdown, of capital spend in a lot of locations, it's hit them hard in the pocketbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a good and bad situation in terms of, the talent. It's always been such a deficit for the industry. And now there's some people available, not because of the best reason, but hopefully that's going to, in the long run, solve some of those talent issues out there.
I've never seen in any industry in any time, right? We went from the tightest labor market I've ever seen to the loosest market I've ever seen, all within the same year. It's pretty amazing.
So, it sounds to me like you guys are heavily hooked into the recurring revenue model. And are you doing any project-based work, or is it all recurring, or what's that structure like?
Yeah, so our recurring this year, our goal is to get to 20% of our total revenue will be in recurring, whether that is embedded technicians, service contract, hosted video, hosted access, hosting facial recognition, mobile credentials, a lot of the hosted cyber programs. So we've got a good initiatives to roll everything out. To give cloud opportunities to our clients to solve problems, but still about 80% of our work is project generated. A little less than 80%. Yeah.
Is a lot of it coming from RFPs, or what type of source?
Yeah, so Scott, with our embedded process, our existing clients, whether they're regulated utility, have to keep up with FERC and NERC regulations and SIP requirements, which drives them to put in certain systems. So one of the biggest explosions we've seen in project work is around OSDP, open source device protocol, right? And obviously the prox technology was hacked. The communications between WeGAN panels, intelligent controllers, and the reader, the card. So we've had so many of our clients calling for upgrades of credentials, readers, and intelligent controllers. We've been swarmed with OSDP upgrades. So that's been a heavy part of our lift. We still have clients that are running, sub Windows 10 technology on their DVRs and NVRs. So we've had some big uplifts of NVRs and adding analytics in, upgrading cameras. People still have analog cameras out there, so a lot of encoders. So most of our projects are coming from negotiated business, where our organic team or existing project managers are talking to clients, and the clients have projects they need to harden their facilities or change their facilities. And even in the corporate world, as they come back to work, where some people still remain virtual, you're going to have more space between people. So they're still going to have the same amount of real estate, just people are going to be spread out a little more.
And you mentioned retail and utilities, and what are a couple of other verticals that you're really keyed in on?
Yep. So no retail. We don't know. We're not touching retail at this point.
I was thinking is of retail.
Yeah, we don't do their big boxes. We just do their corporate campus footprint.
Gotcha.
Yep. So corporate campus is a big focus for us. Data centers, senior living, regulated utilities,
Healthcare.
and healthcare.
And you mentioned the gunshot detection, which is really sort of an emerging area for integrators. What kind of opportunity and growth do you see there?
So we see a lot. So we see, each corporate campus using it. When we talk about weapons detection first, and everybody's, I guess, trained to talk about gunshot detection, but we try to really stick to deter versus detect. So we talk about weapons detection. So we're detecting you before you get in. We've deployed some large hosted weapons detection systems for corporate clients, both hosted. So we in some regards, they're hosted. So we see a lot of opportunity coming, and it plays in duty of care. Once you protect one of your facilities with a weapons detection or gunshot detection, you really have duty of care to your employees to do it at all your facilities. You can't just do it in Charlotte headquarters and let poor Jim down there in Austin not have the same duty of care or same security.
Mm-hmm. And what about in terms of remote troubleshooting, diagnostics, things like that? How are you leveraging some of these new tools and platforms to not have to roll trucks?
Yeah, so secure VPN, right? So we with our clients, we have secure VPNs in to troubleshoot their system. The manufacturers, have done a great job in our industry of building solid hardware that's reliable. We run today just over 500 service calls a month, and have less than 3% return trips on those calls. So there's still a lot of truck rolls, even with remote servicing. And a lot of times it's client issues, network problems on the client site. A lock is bad on the door because of usage and abusage, and how employees are using that door. We still get some runs that they're getting an alarm on the door. We're getting an alarm on the door because it's propped open. So we still get a lot of those calls, but month in and month out, we're just north of 500 service calls, and that's been a run right now for 14 months. So it's still a lot of truck rolls going on, but we try to troubleshoot remotely before we roll. We're very transparent with our clients, Scott. So each client gets a service portal, so they can see real time when they placed the call, when we received the call, when it was dispatched, when we arrived, and what the resolution was.
You touched on it a bit, but, at this point, how do you view the competition? Were you more concerned about, the super regionals maybe that are in your neck of the woods, or the national companies, or what are you looking out for?
I think as we look at that, Scott, we feel our offering, if we get to tell our story about how we do things and what we do, and they check with our references, we've really got an unfair advantage in corporate campuses, without a doubt, in regulated utility space, because our story is second to none, as we'll service 7,000 substations through 5 states for a regulated utility. I don't think many people can match up to something like that. Supporting corporate campuses in 62 U.S. cities and 9 foreign countries flawlessly, I think, is another separator. So if somebody would listen to our story and check our references before they made a decision, I think we've separated ourselves from the competition. If we're just filling out an RFP and they're going to decide on low bid, then I think you got challenges with the big nationals with their buying power, and you've got challenges with the super regional, maybe not understanding their labor hours and their estimate how long it takes to do something. And I say that after looking at 25 regionals that I think if they estimated better and marked up differently, the books would have looked different as we reviewed them. So different in different circumstances, in the senior living space, there's really not anybody in security pursuing them. It's really one-offs. Nobody's got a big concentration in that. In corporate campuses, it's all over the board. Sometimes they're using regionals, sometimes they're using nationals. But we don't see anybody in particular, and I think goes back to Eric's earlier comments. We don't want 2,000 customers this year. We want 15 that want to work with us and understand the program that we can set up for them.
Do you have like how long does it typically take for a salesperson to get trained on what they need to do there, or a technical person?
Sure. Obviously, our manufacturer partners or our technology partners have set curriculum for the different levels of certification, whether it's basic all the way up to a platinum certification. Typically it can take, it really depends on the employee and the aptitude for, two things, their aptitude for learning, but also it's us holding them accountable and them holding themselves accountable to want to be better, to grow, and to want to be the best. And we'll give them the tools and we'll give them the support to do that. But they need to have that fire in their belly to want to do it, to grow. Same for sales. We want to understand the technology. We want them to understand the partnerships we have, but we also want them to understand the processes of what it takes from installation to programming to commissioning a system all the way to service, so they can understand that process, so that we're providing our clients a strong solution. Because really, our sales relationship with the client. So knowing and understanding those things is a very strong message of who we are when we're telling the story to them. Not, you asked earlier what differentiates us. I think that our team understanding and being knowledgeable, anybody can sell a camera, and I'm using that loosely, but, understanding why they're positioning and placing that camera and what it's going to take to install it and what the cycle is for that equipment is very important for our sales team as well. So they're not just, mailing it in, so to speak.
Gotcha. What about in terms of, and this may be for you or for the other guys, but in terms of partnering with outside contractors or other integrators to provide maybe localized service or, wire pulling and that kind of things, what opportunities are there for, maybe people in our audience to partner with or work for Sage?
John, do you want to
yeah,
take that
sure.
one? Okay.
Yeah. So Scott, we've, as one of the PSA shareholders, we use our PSA NDP program, National Deployment Program, on a regular basis. With a 32-year history at ASCO and a 6-year history at DTS, we've got other partners that aren't always part of the PSA NDP that we use in each country or each city to deploy. We've got relationships with them. We've been working with them years, so nobody's getting a call for us in Charlotte today to say, hey, can you run and take care of a reader for the data center, right? They already know the address. They're in our system. We've already had contact before. We've got credit history with them. They're insured, certified, and capable in that city. So we've done some background before they can become a Sage subcontract partner. It's so important to us. We hosted luncheons in a couple of our geographies this year, and one of the awards we gave out, along with our Technology Partner of the Year award and our Distributor of the Year award, was a Subcontract Partner of the Year award. And there was criteria and all the employees got to vote. All the associates here at Sage got to vote for who they thought best supported us. And so the subcontract relationships are a huge deal when it comes to how we deploy, and we have them, run cable mount devices for us before we come in, make final connections, train, program, and quality control the system. And then from a service basis, if we've got a site that we've deployed in Seattle and 6 months later there's a service call, we've got partners that are reliable that'll be there, same day to take care of service.
To add to John's comments, we talk about employees being tip of the spear, and clearly that's our number one focus. Again, take care of them, the rest takes care of itself. But we've initiated tip of the spear relationships with all our vendors and subcontractors. You treat them the same way you treat their employees, and they will bend over backwards for you, right? Whether it's every time we have a new Sage swag shirt or hat or something like that, you make sure they're a part of that. They're a part of your holiday celebrations. Like John said, we have Sage Partner awards luncheons. We communicate with them frequently, so you kind of apply the same model to the vendor / subcontractor world, and you get passionate, empowered partners as well, right? So the model works for both, right? And so we've applied that same tip of the spear model we use for employees. You apply it to your vendor partners, and I hate that word, but I'm using it for descriptive purposes. But your vendor partners, your subcontract partners, and you'll create loyalty really, really quick. A lot of people don't recognize their vendor partners, their subs, and treat them like that. So we found it's been a real big differentiator for us.
And it's one other thing, Scott, that sometimes you just make the assumption, but paying them on time, right? So they run out and did a service call for you, paying them in 30 days, or if their invoice says 20 days, whatever you'd agree to, paying them to the term that you've agreed because they're providing service to you. We see, especially some of our national competitors, paying in 90 and 120. That's their subcontract agreement, which is horrible, right? And we see some regional people pulling off pay as paid. I say manage your cash flow and pay your contractors the date they want the invoice paid. So it seems like yeah, John, of course you do that, but the industry doesn't follow suit.
Yeah. And in terms of those vendor partners, how much has Sage standardized on certain lines versus always looking for, a best of breed, or how do you assess that out?
Yeah, so I'll give you two things. So 78.5%, and we just left a purchasing meeting earlier today, that's why I know the number. 78.5% of our purchases came from 10 technology partners. So we've got a good concentration and good training around a good subset. And then the other 20% are variable. But for us to evaluate a new product, we have a product review committee that meets once a month. We'll evaluate 3 to 4 new technologies a month with the committee. It's represented by sales, engineering, project management, business coordination. We've got a whole process around how you get on the chart. So do we have a need for this product? Do we already have a technology that does the same thing? Why are we, if somebody came to us with an access platform, what would be the business case? We already have the best access platforms in the industry. Why would we look at another access control platform? If somebody brought us another camera solution, we've already partnered with the best camera technologies in the industry. Why would we look at another one? So it'd have to be, when somebody brings us anti-drone technology, yeah, they get a seat at the product review committee table and present their wares. If a cyber solution like eCentire comes to us with a strong cyber solution, they get a seat at the table. If Zero Eyes weapons detection comes to us with a solution, they go to our product review committee.
How much has privacy concerns become, part of the picture when you're dealing with your end users now and making sure that that's, safeguarded and honored and that sort of thing? And I imagine since you have some business, overseas also, that must be, something that you have to deal with.
Yeah, so GDPR is a big thing, especially internationally. So we handle that. Eric does as he said, put together a great executive team, and our HR person or director, Lori Hudnall, does a great job of leading that up and has a lot of interaction with clients around that. Privacy is a big concern, especially internationally. For our corporate and utility clients, there's a lot of policy and process in place about how you deploy a camera. What's that camera going to see? Where's that reader information go? You sign a lot of documents about who owns the information. And now that, in situations where we're hosting, we're managing video and access, right? You've got a lot more questions to answer with IT and legal teams inside a company.
So as we sit here today, guys, what would you say are your 3 top, or maybe it's just 2 challenges, right now with the business?
Yeah, so I think it's around deployments of new systems. The team is ramped up so quickly, as Eric talked about. We're 45% of our organic growth goal for the year, and February's not over yet. So the amount of work that's come in, Scott, and balancing that and staffing for it properly to make sure our workflow, all our processes are excellent, and adding headcount, training headcount to continue to meet the demand of that workflow, as it comes in. And we work real hard with the team and the customers to try to forecast when a project's coming in so we can staff properly. But getting that forecast from existing customers is easier than getting it from the new customer that isn't in that routine yet. So staffing properly for this enormous growth is probably the number one challenge.
Yeah, and mine's maybe a little different. My biggest, keep me up at night is actually how do we maintain the culture as we scale, right? That's difficult. We have a 58 people. We're a strategic leadership team. We're not in a box, right? And so that culture is done through high levels of communication. But as we scale, we've got to maintain that culture. And I think it's, just the sheer volume is the size by which we want to grow. That's a big focus, is making sure as we grow that we maintain that culture. And it's not it's a daunting task. We know that, and we're all hyper focused on it. But that's one of my big concerns.
It's interesting, Scott, that Eric said that, and it makes me think back when Eric got his goals for 2021 from the board. Most people think, all right, you're going to have a financial goal. Well, Eric's goals, which became our goals, since we're aligned, are around social responsibility, employee engagement, then of course systems and some monetary goals. But it was extremely interesting for the second year in a row that a board assigns goals around employee engagement to maintain the culture and social responsibility. So to be a good corporate citizen inside and outside the industry. So whether that's food drives or charitable work or Mission 500 work, coffee for kids, right? Participating in industry events and being a good social citizen as a company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a trend that we're seeing more widespread. I know it's within our organization too, and it's something that's kind of cool is that I think the bean counters are realizing that you have to have those kinds of things in place in order for the financial returns to be where you want them to be. So
no question. And it's also, been a phenomenal recruiting tool, right? You find that the people who align with social responsibility and the need for it, if they have zero desire and zero, care, that's an interesting thing for us to learn during the interview process, right? And so if the people who align with social responsibility, they tend to align with a lot of the other, cultural things that make up Sage. So yeah, I agree. It's and I'll tell you, 2 years ago, I wasn't the greatest at social responsibility. It was not something I really paid a lot of attention to in a business setting. In a personal setting, you do, but in a business setting, I didn't. And it's probably been the biggest area for me as a transformational thing for me to pay more attention to. And you're spot on. It is here to stay. And I hope our competitors don't pay attention to it because it's been a strategic advantage for us.
Scott, as we talk about culture, and I want to make sure we stay on your agenda, but just a little more additive, when we moved to Sage, some of the programs we put in place was an internal reward system. So if a customer calls out an employee for doing a great job, we created a Sage football helmet, and they get that helmet and a $100 gift card. If they get another compliment from a different customer, the same customer, they get a tip of the spear sticker, like a Buckeye, put on their helmet, and another $100 gift card. We've got anniversary pins, right, for people that have been here 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30 years with the company. They get anniversary pins with that number on them. Employee referrals. So if we've had employees refer other employees to come to work here, which is your greatest compliment. Nice $500 bonus they get. We've got if they refer a customer to us, we've got a bonus program for them. So recognition awards, we talked about our operations and sales kickoff meeting. We had a Rookie of the Year award, a PM of the Year, a Service Technician of the Year, and a Tip of the Spear award winner. The person in the company that most exemplifies what Tip of the Spear is. And this year our winner was Jared Alexander. He's one of our national project engineers out of Atlanta. And, I could go through 1,000 things that he does to make them. But, I think employee recognition is where I'm headed, is a huge part to say, hey, are you really Tip of the Spear? And how are we recognizing employees and how we do that? And little things for the culture in the office, as far as, decorating contests around holidays and things like that. So the employees really are into each other and into the business.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. So bigger picture, how much do you see a rebound for the rest of this year for not only your company, but the security industry at large? And, when we meet a year from now, what will success look like for you?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of that, and I'm sure John or Jim can take a little bit as well. I look at 2021. What's interesting is I think there's a real hunger to get back to normalcy, right? I think it's whether it's the social aspect of what we do as human beings or in business, but there's a real desire to get back to normal, right? We've got fatigue, right? The society's got fatigue. 2020 created fatigue. So I think from a macro perspective, that's really, I think it's our industry as well. We're seeing, I think 2021 is really kind of what 2020 was supposed to be, right? Is simply put from Sage's perspective, right? If you look at our goals for our, from a top line, bottom line, some of those type of goals, it's really what we had in line with 2020, right? And so it's kind of, I think, a little bit of a reboot. And our customers are about the same. We didn't see a lot of project go away. We saw them kind of postponed and pushed out. So I think there's a real strong, I just was talking to somebody this morning about this. There's a real strong desire to get back to normalcy. And I think we're seeing it with our customers. We're seeing it with our employees. We're seeing it with, their budgets and their spends. So I kind of twofold, right? I think everybody wants to get back to some sort of normalcy. And we're seeing that, bear fruit, top line and bottom line.
Well, gentlemen, John, Eric, Jim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Scott.